The Independent Electoral Commission has denied discriminating against ActionSA. That's after the party announced yesterday that it would be taking the IEC to court because its name does not appear next to its logo on the ballot paper for the local government elections. But the IEC says there is a simple explanation. The Commission says ActionSA had marked not applicable when asked to provide an abbreviation of its name for infusion on the ballot paper. Now, the IEC says a total of 14 political parties appear on the ballot in the various ballot papers without their abbreviated names. Well, joining me now for this discussion is ActionSA spokesperson Lerato Ngobeni and the IEC Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Mawethu Mosery. Let's start with you, Ms. Ngobeni. And the question I want to ask of you is why did you choose to say not applicable when you were asked for an abbreviation of the name ActionSA?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Oli, and good morning to the Newzroom Afrika viewers. Such an appropriate question to ask. I have in front of me, Oli, the IEC Electoral Commission application for registration by party, Annexure 1 of the IEC, simply states that you should put in, number one, state the name of your party, number two, abbreviated name, if any, of the party. And that's where we put not applicable, because our registration documents specifically state that our name should not be abbreviated. Now, there's also a sentence just under abbreviated name, if any, it states, the abbreviated name may not consist of more than 8 letters. Now, if you look at our name, ActionSA, it consists of exactly 8 letters. We did that strategically so that our name could be used both as an acronym if people wish to do so, and the IEC in this case, or use it in full. And that's really what the situation about not applicable is for. We were simply responding to the question that was on the annexure of the IEC itself. So it baffles us that they would penalize us for, or if any other party for that matter, who's in this same predicament, they would penalize us for something that says if any. So it was not a total requirement, it was an option. And so for us, that doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Mosery, not only is this an option if you listen to Ms. Ngobeni's argument, but the requirement is that there be 8 letters. And they're saying that their name, ActionSA, and I actually just did the count myself, it actually works out to 8 alphabets. Where is the problem? Why are you doing this?
Chloe, good morning, and good morning to Lerato and your viewers. Indeed, what she has shared with us here is correct to their submission, is also correct to their certificate of registration, as well as the government gazette that they published to record the identifiers of the party. However, I hear from what she's just shared with us an acknowledgement of oversight in terms of putting an abbreviation or understanding what the abbreviation impact would be when it comes to where we are now with the look and feel of the ballot papers. In this instance, Chloe, I must go on and say there was never a question to us on what that whole number 3 meant and what is the impact of that number 3. And we did not also explain it to them. And therefore, it does not exist. And when it doesn't exist, we cannot insert an identifier for the party. And the registration particulars as they stand are, as we explained to you, legislated, regulated, and we cannot ad hocly amend it where we are as the Electoral Commission.
Mr. Mosery, who is the person that is supposed to guide political parties as they do the obvious registration in the lead up to the IEC then finalizing these processes? Do you have a person who is there whose duty it is to advise and guide political parties?
Certainly, as the Electoral Commission, we do guide parties and we do interact and communicate with them on all aspects of registration. And in this particular one, there was never a question. You would also recall, Chloe, and your viewers, that in the same period before finalization of this registration, we had an issue with the logo of ActionSA, which was similarly outlined with another political party. And those issues we dealt with ActionSA, hence the current logo that they have registered with us is a completely different logo from where they started as a political party.
So it means the person then who is supposed to advise and guide these parties, they did not do their jobs. Who's that person?
They did their job, but when the party also doesn't inquire on some aspects of registration, we cannot go overboard and provide that tool. In this case, we have over 600 political parties on our register, besides the 300 that are contesting this election. And quite a number of them do not have abbreviations, and we believe they have elected not to provide an abbreviation.
Well, ActionSA has a problem with that, evidently, Mr. Mosery.
Correct.
Ms. Ngobeni, are you satisfied with what is being said here? Do you think the person whose job it is to advise and guide you did their jobs properly?
You know, when we had a conversation with Mr. Mawethu this morning, and I am still confused as to the reasoning of the IEC. It's very upsetting, actually, to be sitting here. He rightfully refers to our logo registration at the beginning when we were trying to get the party registered. It seems to be a pattern with the IEC when it comes to dealing with ActionSA. We have Michael Beaumont, who's our national chairperson. We have Ngobeni, who's our director of operations, who's on the NLPC with the IEC. If anybody should have known that this was going to be an issue, they would have known. So when Mr. Mosery says that there's somebody who advises political parties and that they have engaged us in this way, he's being untruthful. And I'm sorry to say that, but you are being untruthful, sir. We have not had any engagement with you. And secondly, Xoli, you know, ActionSA believes in the rule of law. It's a value of our organization. And one of the things we do is comply. We comply. If you look at ActionSA's submission to the IEC on whether to declare our donations, we have done that on time. When you look at our ability to submit our lists on time within the deadline, we have done that on time. And so now, last week, we have had another issue with the IEC where they left off our candidates off of the official IEC list. And then they came back and said to us it was a clerical error. And what I'm trying to allude to here is there seems to be a pattern developing. It's the third time now we're dealing with the IEC and the issues when it relates to our party. And we're quite concerned. I mean, the fact that we now have to resort to the courts to resolve this issue is actually very sad. And so what we would have wanted to see, Xoli, is an IEC that is responsible and an IEC that is dealing with us in good faith, and for us to feel that they're dealing with us in good faith. And at this present moment in time, where there's smoke, you know, there's no smoke without fire. And we are beginning to be very suspicious of the IEC's dealings with us. And lastly, when the IEC was telling us about the logo looking like the POA, and they were stating that they did not want to confuse voters and that they were acting in the best interest of the voters, why are they not doing the same thing here? Why are they not trying to have the best interest of the voter, who must be able to identify the party of their choice? I mean, we're not registered as a logo, Mr. Mosery. We are registered as ActionSA. Our registration documents stipulate our name as ActionSA, not the logo. And so for you to decide that, you know, you're going to use an abbreviation, somebody's name, and a logo on the ballot is really insufficient. And you've stated that you're not doing this arbitrarily. But it seems to us that you are doing so. And so if you're saying that this is a draft document, you should have submitted it to us. We've come back to you and said there's something wrong with this ballot. And the fact that you are doing it to other organizations, well, ActionSA is taking the fight for those other organizations as well, because we think that this is unfair.
Mr. Mosery.
Yes, sir.
There might be, and just listening to Ms. Ngobeni, you're possibly going to have a credibility crisis at this rate, because it was not only the decision to reopen the candidate submission process, which made for headlines, which was not particularly good on the image of the IEC. But this particular instance, you're making all manner of admissions here, but at the same time, you're refusing to take responsibility. There was incompetence on this matter, Mr. Mosery. Is there a way that you can solve this with ActionSA by actually even avoiding the court action? Because if they do go to court and win, you are going to have egg on your face.
Tolly, we have to be very strict with the environment that we manage. It is a highly prescribed environment. It is an environment that is highly contentious in the sense that it's an environment of competition. So whatever administrative action we take, we must be backed up by relevant regulations or statutes. In this instance, to change the identifiers of a political party, there is a regulation that needs to be followed. And therefore, we would be advising the parties concerned to follow that process.
No,
but
Mr. Mosery,
it is not.
Let me just ask you this.
It is not possible, totally, that they could meet the requirements of that regulation. It therefore puts us at a situation where we have no basis in law or administratively to accommodate the submission they have made in this instance.
Final word, very quickly.
He needs to point us to that regulation, because there is nothing in law prescriptively that says that the IEC needs to use abbreviations on the ballot. It is precisely up to them to design a ballot in a particular way. If, in fact, our name was not going to be included in the abbreviation box, they should have consulted with us and every other party, for that matter, that they've excluded. In our case, we have complied and we have chosen our name in the way that we have for 8 characters for us to be able to meet those requirements either way, whether our party gets, we choose to take an acronym or not. And so for me, as if I was a South African listening to this interview, I would be wholly confused by what the IEC is basing this decision on. We would be happy to engage with them. We would be happy to take them to the table and talk about this. But it's unfortunate that Mr. Mosery keeps on telling us that now we must go back and re-register. And he knows that. He said that this morning, that we must go re-register, which would mean that we would lose out on this election. And it's seemingly that is actually what is going on here. In the times of the Ingatas of the time when we were going into our transition, there was a whole thing about Isandla Semfene. It looks like there definitely is a Isandla Semfene here. It's very unfortunate that the IEC is treating political parties in this way.
Lerato Ngobeni, speaking for ActionSA, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Mosery, I'm not sure what to say to you, but thank you for your time, IEC Deputy Chief Electoral Officer.
I hope the conversation doesn't end here, actually. There will be an opportunity to follow the prescripts in detail. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We'll follow the court processes very closely. Thanks indeed for both these people and for their time.